Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions. I'm here with the one and only Michael Fitzgerald Troy, the greatest comics interviewer and comics reviewer on the internet, if you were to ask my opinion. And Rocco.
Thank you for that. Yeah, my dog, sorry. He's a little needy this morning, so he needed to be part of the situation. So
that's fine.
Here he is. He'll be good. He'll probably bail before long anyway. So.
Well, he's looking great. So he's a perfect addition to the image we have here. So I'm not kidding. I love your videos so much. I always am looking for something to listen to while drawing, and I'll listen to kayfabe, I'll listen to others, and I like them fine, but my gosh, man, you're so entertaining. You are so much fun, and you've got a lot of passion about what you really like and don't like as well, and I love that.
Funny how fate came together. I've been wanting to do I came to LA to be an actor. I've done stand-up for years, and I've always sort of juggled comics and acting and comedy all at the same. So my YouTube channel is kind of a perfect marriage of all of those things. During the pandemic, I thought, okay, so now I have all this downtime. I might as well finally start my YouTube channel. And admittedly, I started watching the kayfabe channel, and they do pretty much what I do. So it was like, oh, I can do this because I have a buttload of old comics, a very valuable collection with a lot of historical issues that I loved. And I don't know, I just felt, it was very comforting during, that dark time to sort of reconnect to my youth and just look at all those comics and, going through them, when I talk about the comics, and I try to be as informational as I can as far as the facts and stuff. I don't always get it right. So I try to be careful or at least say that I don't know that this is 100% true.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and maybe this is a cop-out, I don't know, but I even say it in the theme song of my show. It's like comic book art critiques. I got into comics for the love of the art. I'm an artist. I've been drawing since I could hold a crayon. My mom always encouraged me, and my brother, he's an artist. He got me into comic books, and I've just always loved the art. Before I could even read, so comics basically taught me how to read. Yep. And I would just read the captions and I would read the speech balloons and not the captions because I thought it was very overwhelming at the time. So, but I definitely thank, writers like Chris Claremont for an extensive vocabulary and just I don't know, I just love comics, and just to be able to, a lot of my comics are in my dad's attic in Ohio. So my sister's been mailing them to me, which is kind of horrifying because I'll get this big box of comics and they'll spill out all over, and I'll be like, oh my God. This is
the way they're packed and
the way they're treated. Yeah. It's but whatever. As I say, comics are meant to be read. I don't have them graded, or I should I take pretty good care of them. God knows they've been sitting in boxes for decades, so that helps. But it's weird. It's I don't know if it's getting older or what, but it's it really does take you back to the joy you felt seeing those Art Adams or John Byrne or George Perez or all the great artists that I love so much for the first time. And plus, I feel, there's only a finite amount of physical comics out there, and a lot of people won't get the opportunity. So kind of doing a flip through is almost as good as looking through it yourself. And a lot of people comment that it's kind of discussing comics with friends. And since sadly, I have very few comic geeks in my real day-to-day life, it's it does fulfill that need in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And plus I don't have to put up with people's comments until I read them in the in the feed. So there's that too.
I haven't seen I don't think at least the ones that I've looked at in terms of comments, you don't seem to be stirring up any negative controversy or anything. Have you yet? Or because I see mostly positive stuff.
It's funny you should say that because I think one of the things people do like about my show, and I feel like I probably could have a bigger audience and viewership if I were like meaner or more scandalous or like bitched and hated everything.
No.
But I don't want to do that. I want to celebrate my love for comics. And I think that, that's infectious, and my enthusiasm kind of shows. Now, I did just do an episode on Alpha Flight 106, the coming out issue of North Star. And so I feel like, it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I am doing this with a goal. I would love to, make some money off of my YouTube channel. I was recently monetized, so it's like I'm putting in the work. I'm trying to do it. I don't want to sabotage myself. But, it's like as I'm sure as a YouTube creator, it's like, you want to try to get people to watch it, so sometimes you do like try to come up with clever, titles and things like that. And on the thumbnail, I said, or whatever, I said, North Star comes out in one of the worst comic books ever made. And that's my opinion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people were kind of like up in arms and like saying, oh, this isn't the worst comic book ever, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, whatever happened to opinion? And in my opinion, and I said one of the worst, not the worst. It's like, I wish I had the absolute word on everything. Sure. But it was just, it's funny though, because it really annoyed me. I was like, am I not allowed my opinion? I mean, first of all, it's a bad comic. It's poorly drawn, poorly conceived, historical in a lot of ways, sure, but highly offensive in many ways too. And I have a different perspective as a gay man, so
sure,
get off my back.
Yeah, totally.
So, but I honestly didn't do it with the intention of like tearing it to shreds, because when it came out, believe it or not, it was like so, media newsworthy that it was like selling out. And I never read it until last week. So I was like, wow, what a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But
that was
for the most part, I do comics that I love, so.
Sure. Well, to be fair to your perspective as well, that comic was clearly made during this time in the 90s when they were just trying to manufacture what Jim Lee and those other artists had created, and Rob Liefeld. So they were just manufacturing this one style rather than just having artists. I feel like that's what was happening. Instead of just having artists draw their way, it's like they were telling people, you need to draw like this because this is the style that's like making a ton of money. And then there was a lot of people that just could not do that well. It just like does not translate at all. So
it's funny you should say that, because because not only did Marvel do that, but Image did it in a way. One of the weird thoughts I've had about Image is that they sort of complained about all these things. And I love Image, don't get me wrong. I love Image comics. Sure. This is just more of a observational thing, but I feel like they had all these certain problems with Marvel, but then they left Marvel and created their own version of Marvel in a way. Yeah. I talked to Eric Larson about this, and I really appreciate, what he did with, Savage Dragon and all his books, and like any spin-off book he did, he would get like, Jason Pearson or Adam Hughes or like some great artists that you like. Whereas, Top Cow and Rob Liefeld and did like these contests to find like the next studio artist, basically to emulate their styles.
Yeah.
And as I said it to Eric, I was like, not trying to slam him, but it's like you have Wildcats, but then you have, these offshoot books with like shitty versions of Jim Lee. And I'm just like, I'd rather have like a good artist in his own right. You know what I mean?
100%.
And not to, one of the things that actually people have called me out for is like calling people art clones, and I think they think that's like a derogatory term. But in my mind, I feel like I would like to present the definition of an art clone as someone usually who starts out like emulating someone's style, like, you know, I mean, as young artists, we're always going to draw like the artists that we love. I mean, one week I was George Perez, the next week I was the Pander Brothers, the next week I was Paul Smith, you know what I mean? So, and for better or worse, it all came together to make me the artist that I am today. You know, I think we all draw on everything from different artists. And I think that there are artists who started out as art clones and then really developed into their own style. But then I don't really hate art clones either. It's like you could say Nick Bradshaw is like an art clone of Art Adams, but that makes me happy. If I can't have Art Adams all the time, I'd rather have a decent sort of offshoot of him, I guess.
Sure. So I'd like to take it back a little bit. So I tried to kind of look you up a little bit on the internet. So I don't know if that scares you or not. Because I wanted
there's not much there.
Well, yeah, you don't really have a website. You just have your YouTube channel. You used to have a blog back in the day, but I only found that you were from the Midwest, but you just mentioned earlier that you're from Ohio. Right. And so you moved to LA. Like, when did you decide to move to LA to pursue acting? And like, where did the, like, what was like really like your first original passion in terms of like acting or comics? And were they always there together and they were in mind together? But it seems like you're more trying to pursue the acting piece first. And like, where did those passions arise? And like, how did they compete, if at all?
They've sort of coexisted in one way or another. Like when I was young, I think that I really wanted to be an actor, but I think just like I dreamed of moving to LA to pursue it. And, you know, but I sort of didn't think it was possible. So I wasn't realistic enough in pursuing it. You know, like then I did a play in high school and then I was looking for acting classes and there really weren't many in Toledo, Ohio. So I wound up going to the Margaret O'Brien modeling agency to take their classes because acting was part of it. So they said, so it was like 2 weeks of acting and the rest was like walking on a runway. And they told me I was too short to be a runway model. And so I don't know. It's just more of a funny anecdote at this point. But then that didn't really, you know, fire anything. And then I just eventually, I was living in Florida and, you know, I had an opportunity to move to LA and I was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And then I came to LA and I started auditioning and I freaking hate auditioning. I really hate it. Then I think I realized that maybe I'm more of a personality than an actor. So I started doing stand-up. And while I always did well and, you know, got great reception and stuff, I never quite made the connections that I needed to make. And, you know, I did a YouTube show with my friend that was really, really good. Like we did movie reviews and we did sketch comedy, we did characters, and it was a lot of fun. And it was sort of the beginning of YouTube. I give him credit for having the foresight to see it as a viable thing. But, you know, he had like a busy day job working for a film company and stuff. And it was hard for him because he edited all the videos. And, you know, we stopped. And then, sadly, he used a bunch of music in the intros and stuff. So YouTube basically pulled all our videos for copyright claims. So none of that really exists, except for a small snippet. I was in San Diego one year when we were doing the show, and he was working in PR, and he asked me if I wanted to interview Kim Kardashian and Carmen Electra, and I was like, of course, right? So they were there promoting Disaster Movie Part 4. I mean, can you imagine? And I wound up interviewing them. We were the last ones to interview them, and we made them laugh. It was like their best interview. Kim was pissed off because they were told not to ask her about the sex tape, and like apparently they asked her about it. So I turned it around and made her laugh, and they used like 2 seconds of it in an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So that's one of my big claims to fame, is that people, it's funny because people would come up to me and they'd be like, were you, it's so weird. They'd be like, I don't watch the Kardashians, but my girlfriend had it on in the other room, and your voice, I knew your voice from the other room. It gave, I was like, my voice always gives me away. So, so there's that. So that was fun. I performed at like every major comedy club in LA when I first started doing stand-up. It wasn't long after 9/11, and I was doing a show at the Comedy Store. Just like, everyone thinks that if you do stand-up, like there's going to be agents and stuff in the audience. It's not like that at all. It's full of your friends that you beg to come and, pay $5 and pay for a 2-drink minimum to hear your jokes over and over again. So, I know it's possible. And, but I guess there's like a rigmarole that is like really tough. Like it's a full-time job pursuing an acting career, especially when you still have to pay the bills and stuff. But one night, like, I was doing a show and like Roseanne walked in and did an impromptu set. I've done a show where Drew Carey was part of the lineup. I've done a show where Tim Allen followed our show. So
wow,
I've had brushes of greatness like that are kind of fun and exciting. So, it's been interesting to say the least.
Did you ever get to meet or interact with anyone in those circles at all that are like celebrity status? And do you have any weird stories from that, or?
Lots of encounters with, celebrities. More so, being an actor in LA means a lot of waiting tables. So I could probably do a whole podcast with like celebrity anecdotes as far as waiting on them, but not really. I don't know. Off the top of my head, maybe they'll come up. But anyway, so, art was one thing I was always confident about when I was young. I was always a really good artist, always the best artist in my class. Isn't it funny how we were probably all the best artists in our class?
Yeah.
And then once you get into the fold, you realize I'm so far from the best artist.
Oh, yeah.
So I've always wanted to do that. When I was, after my parents got divorced, we moved to Las Vegas. When I was 12 years old, I did my first self-published comic, which was atrocious. My brother has a copy, and I can barely look at it, but I was 12 and I was, publishing my own comics, and they sold it at one of the local comic book stores, or I should say they, had it there for sale. I don't know if it ever sold, but hey. And, then, I don't know, then, also here, like when I came here, I met certain people. I got involved with a small independent comic book company that does a lot of like biography comics on celebrities, and I wrote several for them. I was at a birthday party once, and I recognized from across the room this gorgeous blonde woman who happened to be Renee Geerlings, who was the editor at Top Cow at the time.
Oh.
Who is now married to Tyler Mane, Sabretooth from, the X-Men. And so I told my friend, I was like, oh my God, I know her. And somehow it got back to her that I recognized her. And she came right up to me and she's like, how do you know me? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I saw your picture in the letters page of Witchblade or something like that. And we wound up becoming friends, and I showed her my portfolio, and she didn't say too much about my pencils, but she did give me a job as a ink assistant for Matt Banning, who is a pretty amazing inker. That was like a good education. I got to go to Top House Studios, briefly met Michael Turner, and so I didn't do his I wasn't doing ink assistant, basically just like filling blacks. And it was very interesting though, because they were so serious about the art. One time I was in their office, and I had the opportunity to be there when this amazing Dale Keown Darkness, I think it was Darkness cover came in, and it was pencils, and they were freaking so gorgeous and so beautiful that they decided to just shoot them from the pencils and not ink it. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I got to work on one of the most intimidating pants shitting experiences of my life was filling blacks on a Mark Silvestri page. I was like, I almost had a nervous breakdown. I feel like it was either part of some return to Cyberforce or maybe not, or the Darkness or something. I really should try to figure it out. But I was so nervous. I was like, I can't be the one who fucks up a Mark Silvestri page and like spill ink on it. I also got to work on a Francis Manipal picture. He was like completely unknown at the time. He got his start at Top Cow, but it was definitely, so those are kind of cool things that
That's
done,
amazing. So. Yeah. I mean, you just been kind of like in the background and all of like these different parts of like both industries of like acting and comics. So like Top Cow, that's incredible. Because out of the studios that we were talking about that existed, those studios that were coming up, I would point to Top Cow as probably being the most sophisticated in terms of the art. Like definitely like they got computer coloring down before I think almost anybody else did. I remember how stark their coloring was. I don't know if you share that opinion at all or not, but very interesting.
Oh no, I feel like they're very, very revolutionary, very, very art, focused, very, like I said, they treated the artboards like sacred pieces, and I really appreciated that. It was also interesting because I wasn't much of an inker, and I was only allowed to use like a Hunt 102 crow quill to fill blacks. And
wow.
tell me that wasn't that
was
kind of crazy. So I really wish I would have stayed with it, and I don't, I just sort of fell out of it with him, and because I didn't, once again I was like pursuing acting at the same time and stuff.
Okay.
So, and I kind of wanted to be a penciler. I didn't really want to be an inker, but But then I went on to like publish my own comic, The Blonde Squad, which was like a satirical comic book. I mean, I feel like it's been done a million times at this point. I thought it was like so groundbreaking at the time, but basically superheroes who become superheroes just because they want to get famous,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is basically kind of like Youngblood with, their PR teams and all that stuff. And that didn't really go anywhere. And then I did my Lady Gaga tribute comic book called Going Gaga.
I was going to ask about that. Was that official at all, or was it just a fan-based comic?
No, it was like completely bootleg, self-published by me. The one amazing thing about it, though, is like whatever year it came out. I mean, it's probably like 12 years ago by now, but I don't know if I didn't go to Comic-Con that year, or no, I did. But then like when I got back or something, someone had shown it to Lady Gaga, and she actually tweeted about it. So
awesome.
That was like another brush with glory right there. So I feel like I've always been just like right there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm giving up or anything,
right.
But I feel like everything happens for a reason. It's all part of our experience. And, like I colored Going Gaga on the computer, and I was really horrible at the time. So like some of the art makes me cringe looking back at it. I think that, recently, like I've contributed to like, certain fan projects and stuff. And I think that I've upped my art game a lot, just, because of Procreate and stuff like that. And just like, that was another thing, like doing the web show. And, I found out about image grand design, and I thought that was really cool. And I was really jealous that I wasn't able to be part of it. So I jumped at the chance to be part of Darkest Image. And
yeah, we're on that together. We're published together in that. We both got segments.
How amazing.
I know.
Yeah, there's so many great things. And like so much great art and stories. And And but then I thought, oh, I just keep wanted doing these fan projects. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, no, I kind of am done with fan projects. It's time for Michael Troy to come back and do. I'm just trying to figure out which book I want to do because I have a few different ideas. But I feel like if I were, like the answer would be there if I were passionate enough about any of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like a level of passion, and I could easily do any one of them. But as someone who does a day job and does a YouTube channel, which I spend a lot of time on, I have to kind of pick and choose at this point what I want to, because I don't want it to be crap. I don't want to just shit something out just for the sake of having a comic book out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm at a point where I've actually turned down a couple of supposed jobs that have come my way because I work full time as well, in a regular job, and I've, taking care of a family and stuff too. It's just like my time is so valuable that whatever I create comic wise, I've got to be really passionate about. So I'm only focusing on my projects. Because the same thing, I don't want to just shit something out. It's a great way to put it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's smart.
Your art though is the past few postings that I've seen you make on your art, like the she dragon grand design thing, you've got this really nice graphic design style that is like really starting to come forward in your work as not contrary to, but just like as evolving from what I've seen in your work in Darkest Image. So just even in the past like year or two, it seems like you've like hit some kind of like I don't know, groove for yourself or some kind of flow that you really seem to either be enjoying, or at least my eye is getting drawn to it way more. So I don't know if you're feeling that or if that's just my perceptions or what.
Definitely feeling that. I think it's sort of like an evolution of a style that sort of was underneath anyway, and sort of just really, taps into my own sensibilities. I think, like on my Freak Force story for Darkest Image, I was definitely, like channeling Byrne and like doing homages and stuff. But, since I thought it was an image book, I thought, oh, this should be a lot of homages and, swipes and things like that. And now I'm kind of like, now that I'm done with that too, I'm kind of sick of swipes and recreations. It's like, I think they have merit, but I think that, and Julia Roberts, who knew she would come up during this, but I remember when they remade Ocean's 11, or when they did Ocean's 11, the remake, she was like, it wasn't a great movie to begin with. So, you don't really want to remake a blockbuster. Like if you're going to homage something or do like a song or whatever, it should be just as good or better than the original, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see one more bad, giant size X-Men homage drawn in a really crappy style. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's fine. It's fine. There's room for it. I'm not trying to completely slam it, but I feel like at this point, it's a little bit played out.
Yeah.
And, it's like, give us some covers that they'll be homaging 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, I agree. I know I've been on the homage bandwagon, even for some of my own comics the past couple of years, but I was just was it with Ben Granoff? I was having a conversation, and I just started feeling it this past spring of like, okay, yeah, like what you just said, it feels really played out now. We had our fun in the sandbox, and it's time to start creating something new and different. So I'm really trying to focus on original content now in terms of like because it was an exercise for me, because I've only really been professionally making comics the past few years. I really only jumped into the game fully a few years ago when kayfabe started coming on the scene, and it was a good exercise for me to kind of hone my art style a little bit, and especially with some of these fan projects. But now it's like I feel like I've got enough pages that it's like I feel more confident in creating something that is more original to me. So, by the way, complete congratulations on landing Eric Larson and Don Simpson. And I think you posted something. So I haven't gotten to watch the Don Simpson interview because you just dropped it like right before you and I met, so I haven't had time. But the Eric Larson one was great, and
thank you.
You really sparked something in me too, because you did a follow-up video of Savage Dragon number ones, the 2 number ones, and man, you really, I don't know, there was something about, because I think I even remember kayfabe going through it, but something about the way you kind of went with it. It started to make me think that Savage Dragon number 1 of the original series, of the original limited series, and it's probably because when I remember being like 12 or 13 when I picked it up, I think it's one of the best comic covers of all time. Like it's got so much energy and power, so much. And I mean, you described it best. I don't have like the words. You're way more fun and articulate in your description.
I have the gift for gab. What can I say?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Why your channel is perfect, but and that just the level of energy that Eric Larson brought, especially in that era. I've seen some of his stuff now, and it's still great, but that there was so much, and it spoke to me. I don't know how old you were when it came out. I think I was about 13, maybe 14, actually. But it just, man, it had so much drive, and I wanted to recommend to you, because you've been calling out for artist edition. Have you looked at the trades that he put out that are just all black and white?
I probably should, huh?
Well, they're only like $20 a trade, and there's like 20 some issues or more in each volume. They're huge. Wow. And it's all black and white, though, just on newsprint. And what I noticed is like a vast difference between his work when it's colored and when it's black and white. I never, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you already spoke to this level of sophistication in his inking and how layered his artwork really is. And I never really touched on that until I saw it in black and white. And he's I mean, I always loved him, but the level of experimentation that he was doing in those issues is just phenomenal. I mean, you can get lost in those black and white. So it's really cheap, and you should at least the first volume check it out, because I think you would dig it.
I think I definitely will, for that reason. Yeah. Like, I think I love the artist editions. You can see my Bill Sienkiewicz art edition behind me.
I was going to comment. Yeah.
The John Byrne X-Men one was like profoundly eye-opening for me. Even as, an art connoisseur and lover for many years, it was just like mind-blowing. And the star of it for me was Terry Austin. I was just like, I know that he is so celebrated and loved, and definitely part of the Claremont, Byrne, Austin, era, but I mean, just like I could look at it for hours, just the textures and the noodling and the different techniques, and he won't just do one kind of zip-a-tone on a page. He'll do it, 3, or just like there's always something there. And it just adds such a depth to it that I really have a love for the synergy between a penciler and an inker.
Yeah.
Even if that inker even if they're the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I also like Rob Liefeld, if you ever can find like a video of him inking, which I've watched before, he's insanely talented as an inker. Like I have a huge respect for good inkers. Actually, it's funny doing my research for the Don Simpson video. There's a video on his YouTube channel of him inking, and it's so good. He's just using a 102 on Crow Quill. And it looks like he's inking with a frickin' brush. I want to strangle him. I'm like, how do you do that? Like magic. I'm like, I hate it. I hate it's so, because I feel like I really struggle with my art. You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes it just happens, like that She-Dragon, pop image that that just was magical. That just came out. And I think that maybe there's a lesson in there. Maybe if it's too hard, it's not meant to be, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. But, you know, I feel like I'm always trying to force different things as an artist when I just need to embrace who I am as an artist. You know what I mean? I'm never going to be John Byrne. I'm never going to ink like Terry Austin. I'm never going to, you know what I mean? So, but I can do the best Michael Troy I can do. So
yeah,
why
absolutely.
not?
Absolutely. So I was going to ask, what is your, I mean, you mentioned Procreate earlier, but I was going to ask kind of what your process was. Are you strictly just, you know, working on a tablet with Procreate, or are you, you still
much recently?
Pencils, inks, what, you know, what's your flow?
I it's pretty much all digital at this point, just for the convenience and the, you know, the messiness and all that stuff. But I feel like I ink way better, manually. So I've really been itching to just bust that. And I should have done it for this. If we ever talk again, I'll do a draw and chat or something. But yeah, I've been really itching to sort of just draw again. It's funny because I find myself, you know, like if I'm talking or in a situation where like I'll do a lot of like ballpoint pen drawing. Mm-hmm. And it's very satisfying. Like I love Jim Rugg's ballpoint pen art.
Oh, I do too.
Like I think there were in Hulk Grand Design. There's a ballpoint pen and ink, maybe the McFarlane cover.
Yep.
And I was like, yes. See, that's how you do an homage. And I think I might have mentioned that in my review. I'm like, you know, he didn't just copy it. He brought a completely different aesthetic to it and made it pretty amazing. I felt like, I feel, you know, especially in grand design, I think there's only so much room to do everything. But I really wanted him to like expand a lot more on like the Dale Keown stuff and the Todd McFarlane stuff. I mean, it was mentioned, but I feel like it was such a tease. I wanted so much more.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to the Treasury edition of that. I love Treasury editions. So good.
Yeah, totally. I actually, if Jim Rugg ever happens to be watching this, man, I want a full comic with all ballpoint pen drawings. Like that's what I want from him. Because, man, that's my favorite of his stuff, really. But yeah.
Joe has like a ballpoint pen art book, I think. And his ballpoint pen, he's disgusting. He really is disgusting because he's so freaking talented. I'm like, screw you and your ballpoint pen. I mean, it's just insane, the level of, it just looks like freaking fine art with ballpoint pens.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the beauty of art. It doesn't matter what, you know, what the media or the technique or the, you know, the tools you use. And that's the other thing, too. It's like, as much as I love comic book art, I love all art. You know, when I was young, I lived in Toledo, Ohio. This is where I was born. And they have believe it or not, they have one of the best art museums in the country. And they had an impressionism show there that just like blew me away, just to be introduced to all that art and just see it and just like just shook for life. I just loved it so much and just like, I don't know, I need to go to a museum.
Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't have, I did go to school, but I didn't have the resources to go to the kind of art school, especially with like a illustration program or a comic art, sequential art program. But the school I went to, it was just studio art and art history is what I majored in. And I'm glad I did it because the breadth of knowledge I have of the art world now and the influences I've been able to kind of pull in from other areas and not just comics. I don't know if it resonates through my work at all, but it definitely, like, for me, it's very helpful. So, and the training I got was way different. It like came from a different approach. And so, you know, I try to bring that in, but yeah, I totally get it.
I regret not going to art college. I like visited like the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. Could you imagine? I could have been like, uh, I mean, you know, with all those other great artists that I'm now interviewing and shit. But, you know, but at the time, it's like I was just out of high school and I was kind of, you know, struggling with my sexuality and, you know, dealing with that and just certain things. So I wound up not going to school. And, you know, I've always been sort of enamored with the idea of the self-taught artist. And I do think, you know, as an artist, you know, it's like you teach yourself all the time. You're constantly learning. And there is something to be about self-taught. But there's something about education too, because I did take some classes at the museum, like in high school, and I'm so glad that I did. I say it all the time, and you know, in my art reviews and stuff, the best artists, even the most wonky, we'll use Bill Sienkiewicz as an example. If you look at his early stuff, he's a complete Neil Adams clone. He will admit it himself. Mm-hmm. But he knows, even though, you know, his characters have like an eyeball coming out of their cheek or, you know, weird wonky anatomy and stuff, he knows how to draw anatomy. He knows perspective. You have to know how to make art before you can break it. And I think that, like, you should know the fundamentals, especially as a comic book artist. I think that, you know, I mean, you know, a lot of people, I don't want to slam like anybody, but, you know, it's just, I just feel like the best comic book artists, you know, I think, and it's funny because when I'm young reading comic books, I'm like in it for the pretty faces and the poses and the explosive action and stuff. But as an artist now, like I'm looking at John Byrne's art and I'm just like, God, like he's drawing like different books on the bookcase in the back, and like there's a teapot, and there's like this page in Alpha Flight where Roger Box, they're in his apartment, and like I don't know, he's an architect or some sort of drafts person, but like he's got his like art table, and there's like a chair, and then there's like masking tape on the chair where there was like a rip in it, and I'm like, you're insane. You're insane. But that's like the beauty of comic book art. It's like you're sitting by yourself. And I often think of Jack Kirby in this situation, him locked in his basement, chained to some old desk, just like being transported through the entire universe through his imagination, his piece of paper, and his pencil.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So speaking of which, since we're on the subject of art, well, obviously, I mean, if anybody watches your channel, they know how much you love Byrne, Perez, Adams. We just dropped some Kevich. Who? It's hard to say who's your most favorite artist, but who sticks out first and foremost in your mind as the most influential to you, and like, what's the comic that like really, like, just changed you? Like, this is it. This is top dog.
Because I feel like Byrne is probably my most favorite. Like if I could wake up tomorrow and be able to draw exactly like Byrne, I would take that opportunity in a heartbeat. But as a young artist, sort of learning how to draw from comics and stuff, it was actually George Perez had the biggest influence on me. Like one of my brother's friends even once said that in retrospect, he didn't realize what a George Perez clone I was at the time. And that thrilled me to no end, to be compared that way. I mean, of course, I was nowhere as good, but, you know, I think I definitely went for that aesthetic. But then I really got away from that. You know, I feel like my style is cartoony in a lot of ways, and I really like the cartoony aspect, and I like to embrace it. And ironically, I think that the cartooniness kind of got in my way, breaking in earlier and stuff. Like a lot of my portfolio reviews and stuff were like, you know, oh, this is too cartoony and blah, 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 blah. And it's funny because I'm glad to see the evolution of comics that, you know, there's a lot of cartoony. I feel like anything kind of goes in comic book art. anymore. You know, there's room for all different styles.
Yeah, thank God.
I know, right?
Yeah, I love it. Awesome.
So, I mean, definitely. But then, you know, like when I started reading Grendel and saw the Pander Brothers art, I was completely blown away, and all my art became very angular and new wave looking. So, I feel like I was sort of an artistic sponge a lot, you know. But I think as far as like the fundamentals of, you know, really drawing a lot and trying to draw like an artist, it probably came from George Perez.
Nice. So, seeing as you grew up in the Midwest, I grew up in the Midwest myself. I grew up in the Ozarks. I didn't have a whole lot of access to independent stuff. In fact, I didn't even know what really an independent comic was, because the only access I had was like the local grocery store. And so of course they only had like Marvel and DC. They did have a few offbeat things like Now Comics, I think, and I think a couple of First Comics, but it was I didn't have any idea about the independent scene until Image started coming out, and by that time I had discovered a comic book store, you know, an hour away, blah blah blah. Anyway, how aware were you of the independent scene, and when did you really first start getting into independent comics, and what was it, what comic did you first encounter on the independent scene that like started pulling you in that direction?
Because I feel like you know, when I lived in, when my parents got divorced, we moved to Vegas and lived there for 5 years and then moved back to Ohio. But while I was in Vegas, my mom got remarried, and our stepdad used to take us to this local comic book store called Page After Page. And I think that's when I first saw, like, you know, of course I was there for the Marvel and the DC because that's all I knew. But then I started seeing like a couple of others, like I like Miracle Man #1, Alan Moore and Gary Leach. I mean, that's kind of a good first independent comic book to have.
Yeah, wow.
Just the art really caught my attention. Sadly, that was the only issue I had because we moved around a lot. My mom got divorced again, and you know, it was kind of, you know, that was the only access I had to it at the time. But I have #1, and that's coming up in my show too.
Nice.
I can't wait to cover that one. But and then I as I mentioned, that's also where I got this like this little new age comic that was kind of like going to be like a collective of indie artists like Will Eisner, Don Simpson, and some other people. And I got that, and then like in high school, you know, my brother was like a punk rocker, so he started going to, you know, like Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Detroit to go to these punk shows, and you know, he came across a few cool comic book stores like Dave's Comics in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I tagged along with them a few times, and that's when I discovered like the Elementals and Grendel and Mage, and Kamiko was like huge for me. That was probably like my gateway to independent comics, and I still have such a love and affection for a lot of all the great books that they did, and so beautiful production levels and art. I was just like, they were like so high end for me at the time, you know, so I really loved and embraced all those. And then, you know, if I couldn't make it, I would have them, like I would send them a money order and have them send me like the last 2 issues of Grendel or whatever, just so and the Pander Brothers, if you're watching, which I know you're not, but are on my list to definitely interview for my show. I would love to talk to them. They're huge for me. I love their art so much. I love their aesthetic. I love Jason Pearson, who is also a friend of mine now. That's what I love about this too. I know people are probably surprised, like, how the hell did you come up with, you know, an Eric Larson interview? Like, but I don't know. I've been, you know, tolerated by Eric Larson for years. I've sort of known him for a long time. You know, I've pitched to him unsuccessfully. And the thing that I really love about Eric Larson is he comes off so like hurt and so like dismissive in a lot of ways, but he's really not that way at heart. Like if you give him a chance, he's quite warm.
Yeah. He's just probably, in his mind, he's probably just being very tactful. Maybe he's just he's precise.
He is very, very tactful and precise. Because a couple of times he could have went somewhere in our interview, but he was always had a lot of decorum. So I'll give him credit for that.
Well, I do like how he kind of reminds me of just like, you know, he's just at this age where and I think he always had opinions, but he's gonna say what he wants to say, and he's gonna, like, you know, go about doing things the way he's gonna go about doing things. And I think he's kind of like, whether you are a fan of Savage Dragon or not, or Eric Larson or not, as a creator, you have to hold him in some sort of esteem of like achieving the dream. Like, he's just in a place where he's just making his comic, and he's gonna keep making his comic, and he just like it's fascinating to me. That's what I've always loved about him.
I mean, he's arguably like the best example of successfully doing what Image Comics set out to do. You know, they wanted to do their own properties, draw their own books, write their own stories, their own characters, and own them, and, you know, be the beneficiary of their creations. And, you know, he's the only one who I mean, Todd McFarlane arguably, you know, Spawn's been going, but, you know, he stopped drawing it very early in the series, to my lament. I mean, could you imagine if I think I even said that to Eric. I mean, if we had 30 years of Todd McFarlane Spawn, I mean, how great would that be?
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I think that Eric definitely does that. And the other thing I appreciate about Eric, and you've sort of touched on that, is, you know, like the experimentation. You know, he's always willing to do fun projects, like his 24-hour comic book. And I just think in his Treasury, Kung Fu, Bible stories or whatever, it's just like, that's the kind of stuff that excites me in comics anymore. You know what I mean? The ship has like kind of sailed. Like, I mean, the X-Men are going to the Met Gala, and I'm just not interested. You know what I mean? It's like the Krakola is like resurrecting mutants that die every other issue, and I'm just like, wow, this is really unrecognizable.
Yeah.
But there's a new Gambit miniseries written by Chris Claremont, and the first issue came out, and Chris Claremont's writing, like after jumping ship from the X-Men, has always been touch and go for me. But this is good. Like, I feel like it's his return to greatness. It read so much like just a really good Chris Claremont comic, so I really enjoyed it.
I thought about checking it out, but I don't know. It's been so long since I went and bought a new comic, so I'm almost afraid to do so. But I mean, that's who I grew up with, was Silvestri, Lee, and Claremont. Like, that was my bread and butter for a good portion of my childhood. So when he left, although it was funny because you talked about, you did like take shots at Scott Lobdell in your Alpha Flight video, I recall. And I remember, for some reason, like, I need to go back and read some of that old stuff, but I remember when Scott Lobdell came on after Claremont that I was like, okay, this isn't bad. Of course, I was like 16, 17. I didn't probably have great taste at all. So I'm interested to go back to read some Lobdell to kind of see how good was it really, and was I just being apologetic or what?
I know. I feel like I've slammed him enough, but I mean, it's.
He tried. He tried. Certainly, he gave us Generation X was a cool comic. I mean, I remember that being a great comic. Maybe it was all Bacalo's art, but I had a lot of fun with that.
I think he did stand on the shoulders of some pretty good artists, because he also did, he had Joe Madureira on the X-Men, and I feel like I tolerated it at the time and didn't think it was bad. But like sometimes like in doing some of my episodes, like I'll just like some of the Alpha Flight, aside from the coming out issues, I feel like he's a late. Here I go, like totally dragging him, but I don't know. I don't know. I felt like it was like a cheap imitation of trying to do what, like, I don't know, live up to the standard of Chris Claremont, but do his own thing at the same time. I don't know.
What a horrible follow-up. I mean, like how I felt bad really for anybody trying to follow up, that run. It was.
Oh my God. I know, like impossible shoes to fill.
Yeah. Yeah. And it never, I mean, for me, that's just kind of like, that's where like X-Men kind of ends for me, and that's when I really started kind of, nitpicking any mainstream stuff. I floundered a lot. I didn't really find anything that grabbed me. And then I eventually was just like, it was just kind of mostly all independent. I'm not opposed to ever picking up anything mainstream. Nothing's really grabbed me yet. Nothing actually really grabbed me until, Piscor did X-Men Grand Design. And then, Jim Rugg and, Tom Scioli, like those were very interesting to me. And I think that's what I want to see. I want to see more people that don't have the house style doing different projects. In that with mainstream properties. That's what I would like to, different takes, different,
But, and it's funny because even though those are new projects, they're reliant on the history of former greatness. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the nostalgia for them creating it and for us reading it,
Yeah.
And sadly, it's like, I saw someone complaining about these, I guess they're doing a lot of sort of nostalgia series, like with Chris Claremont revisiting these old storylines and stuff. And I can't think of specific examples, but I think they've done it with other characters too, like having old writers come back. And, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But then, that's also the thing too. It's like, I mean, Chris Claremont sort of ruined, to speak of following him, he kind of ruined it for everybody else, because I feel like since he left, all they've done is like rehash, it's like everyone loved, Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon and John Cassidy, but it's nothing without Chris Claremont's X-Men. You know what I mean? Not to knock it or say that it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but he didn't exactly reinvent the wheel with it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, I don't think, maybe we're at a point, with Disney involved and everything else. I mean, and especially since, it's like, you're just not going to have what we used to have. You're not going to have the same artist on the X-Men for 2 or 3 years. You're not going to have the same writer for that long. It's like they swoop in and do their, their story arc or whatever, and it's finite, and that's kind of it. You know what I mean?
Where do you feel like we need to head in the industry? Like, do you have a feeling as to like where we kind of need to go to?
Well, it's funny because you said, you haven't bought any like new comics in a long time. And it's like, I feel like I'm only buying like special ones or ones that I feel like might be good for ratings. But mostly the most comics that appeal to me, and I say this a lot in my show too, I'm such an old comic whore. But
me too. I'm with you.
That but I don't want to be such a snob to say that there's nothing good being put out today. And I think the independent self-published comic market is where you're going to find the most talent and the most exciting books. It's like I'm so glad even though I feel slightly like an outsider, I feel glad to be like, I came in alignment with the kayfabe crowd, because I've discovered a lot of great artists and become friends with some of them, like Sam J. Royale, and his art just completely blows me away. His talent knows no bounds.
Yep.
I love Tony McMillan, James Windsor Smith. I cannot wait till his Cactus and book that he just got funded on Kickstarter.
I funded that one. Yep. Love it.
Yeah, I did. Of course. I cannot wait for that. there's so many other good ones. I know. Speaking of Tony McMillan and my artistic ventures, I do have a pinup which I shamelessly pitched to him in his Friday the 13th comic book that I kind of like a lot. It's very in line with the She-Hulk, like more of a graphic look to it. So,
all right,
I was happy with that. And then I do have 2 pages in the hopefully coming fan remake of Batman Year One, the David Mazzucchelli.
Oh yeah, I got a page on that one too. Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So I like how that turned out. Other than that, like I said, I need to make my comic book. And I kind of wanted to do because my Lady Gaga tribute comic book, I wanted to do a Going Gaga 2.0, sort of like an anniversary celebration, however many years it's been, and maybe recolor it and do some new art for it. I think that would be fun.
Is that where you think you're going to land, or what? Like, what can we expect from Michael Fitzgerald Troy in the next year or two?
You can't expect anything from me. You never know what to expect from me.
That's probably best. Keep us all on our toes.
Yeah,
cool.
I know. Well, you don't want the promise without the payoff, right?
Yeah. Well, your channel is doing really well, so I hope you keep pushing out and producing videos, because it's one of my go-tos now. And thank God my YouTube algorithms are such that like your videos are always just popping up on the recommendeds when I go. So all I got to do is go to my home page and like.
I like to hear that.
Yeah.
I like to hear that.
Yeah. So I hope any future interviews that you can give us hints about that you're going to be landing anytime soon, or.
Well, actually, I do have one that I'm super excited about. I'm not going to say exactly who it is, but it is someone that we talked about earlier, and it will be grand for sure.
Cool. So everybody has no choice but just to go out to your YouTube channel and subscribe so they can see.
Please, everybody. I know. Speaking of being a old comic art whore, I'm also a shameless PR whore, and you definitely need to check out my comic review and now comic interview channel, Michael Fitzgerald TV, and I'm sure Daniel will put a link in the description.
I will, and I will make sure and have Sam J. Royale's new logo he did for you, which is an amazing logo. Like,
I know, isn't it? I'm so not worthy. I love it so much. Like, thank you, Sam.
It's perfect.
For giving me a big friend discount on your otherwise unaffordable talents.
Yeah, it's so perfect. So, well, anyway, I'm like really happy for your success. I'm like was really happy to sit down and talk with you, because truly, you're the voice that I like having in the background. So thank you so much, man. It was fun talking with you.
Thank you. I'm so flattered, and I really appreciate you thinking of me for this. And I'm going to keep on doing it because I have plenty of comics left to review. So
awesome. All right. Well, in that case, I will catch you later. Listen to you later. Actually, right after this, I'll be listening to one of your interviews. And cool. I appreciate it. And everybody keep it psycho.
All right. Thanks so much, Daniel. Bye.
Bye.